Is patriotism a form of racism? Right, well, patriotism to me means being proud of who you are and your country that you were born in. That's sort of patriotic to me. The racism side of it is, for me, again, personally, being born in the 70s in the UK when racism was probably at its highest. There was a lot of black people, a lot of mixed race people, a lot of Indian people, um, and we were just getting a lot of hate shown towards us just purely because of the color of our skin. That's racism. I joined the army in 1997, and some of my friends in school were black and mixed race. And when I told them that I was joining the British Army, they were like, "Why? Like the British Army is no place for black people, mixed race people, you know." And I was like, "Well, I'd experienced racism from a very early age, so for me, the name calling really wasn't an issue for me. It goes back to that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, and they never really did. When I was in basic training, my instructor had said to me, when you get to the regiment, just be aware that um, people will call out the colour of your skin and they'll probably call you names and this, that, and the other. And I was just thinking, well, and he said to me, what you're going to do is just give it back. Um, just, just give it back. And that was the best advice that he could have ever probably given me, actually, because when I did get to the regiment, I did stand out. I was the only mixed race um, in the regiment at that time, and for the first few months, um, my regiment at the time were in serving in Northern Ireland, and so I went straight to rear party, based in Catterick in North Yorkshire, and we had a troop sergeant who, from day one that I got there, just gave me such a hard time because of the colour of my skin. And it was every single day. And some of the words that he would use was really venomous, racist language towards me. But every morning I'd wake up. In fact, I remember the first night of being in the regiment, I actually cried myself to sleep because I just thought, what have I done? And I couldn't really understand it. But the next following morning, I got up, showered, shaved, put my uniform on, feeling very proud of what I'd achieved. Also, as well, when I was in basic training, I achieved the best recruit award. So, for someone mixed race, against all the odds, when initially joining the army, um, but I'm the same person that also came away out of basic training with best recruit award. Um, Initially, once the regiment did get back from Northern Ireland, I didn't have to deal with that sergeant anymore. Um, but a year or so later, I got involved with the inter-squadron boxing, and a lot of these, I was still a newbie, but there was a lot of older senior soldiers that would call me names from across the parade square and all this kind of nonsense. And when we had the inter-squadron boxing, I got a bye straight to the final. So I had to fight this guy um, who was one of the guys that was calling me names. And he was from South London, and he looked like a geezer. He looked like he could fight. But I went in there in that ring and I puddled him for all 3 rounds. And at the end, he shook my hand and he said, "Mate, you come at me like a train." He said, "But well done." And I came out the ring with my trophy. And as I was leaving the ring, that same sergeant that had been horrible to me when I first joined was standing at the door, and he put his hand out for me to shake my hand. And I looked him in the eye, and I shook his hand because I knew that I was better than that man there for a fact. And then in 1999, my squadron sergeant major asked me if I'd like to go on a 6 month attachment um, in the UK for the EMRT team, which is the ethnic minority recruiter team for the British Army. And because at that time, the army was publicly seen as some sort of racist organization. So the army, what they did, they would gather people of for ethnicity, different ethnicity backgrounds, and um, and we joined this team, and we would go to job fairs, we would go to seminars, um, and we'd show. And we used to go to schools as well, which was really good because we'd go to like sort of highly black populated schools. So we could show the kids, there's a place in the British Army for you if you want it. Because I remember, again, like my friends were very much against me joining the British Army, but you know, it, it's about what you want to do with your life, and I knew that I could make a decent life for myself by doing what I enjoy. And I joined the army to help people. I didn't join the army for any other reason. I knew that joining the army would be a two-sided coin where you have to deal with confrontations and conflict. But I was more than happy to do that. Um, and this ethnic minority recruiting team was a really good stepping stone for me uh, because it just showed to me what the British Army were now trying to do, which was a good thing. Now, I've noticed over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of Union Jack flags, a lot of St George's flags going up on our streets, on the lampposts, and all that. And personally, I'd like to say, when I came back from Kosovo on both occasions, there was no Union Jack flags and there was no St George's flags. When I came back from Iraq 2 times, again there was no Union Jack flags, no St George's flags in the streets. When I came back from Afghanistan, it was the same, no flags in the street. So where were these people then? These people that claim to be patriotic and all the rest of it. There was none. I never saw no flags at all because there weren't any. The only time we'd ever see flags would be if it was like a royal wedding or a jubilee or something like that, or the England national team um, playing in the World Cup or Euros. But these same people that put these flags up now are the same people that will, when an England black player scores a goal or scores a penalty, he's a god. You know, he's everything that he's the world to him. But it's that same black player in the final of maybe this is potential to win or lose the actual World Cup or the Euros, and that black player misses a penalty, and we don't, for whatever reason, we don't win that game. Then that black player is called all the racist names that you could possibly think of, and you got people throwing banana skins and stuff at these players. So this is the mentality of these so-called fans or these so-called people that claim to be very patriotic. And also, as well, I think, for asylum seekers that have been living in the UK for many, many years, um, and rightly so, because I think, the it was built on immigration. And I think I know that when I was out in Iraq and Kosovo and Afghanistan, I know that we couldn't have achieved half of the good things that we managed to achieve if it wouldn't have been for the help of interpreters. So these interpreters actually worked for us And a fact is in Afghanistan especially, um, a teacher is on the highest wage, right? Well, I'm not sure how much it is, but they're on a high wage. Now the second to under that is an interpreter, because the British and the Americans realised just how important it is to have an interpreter with you. But these same interpreters were also risking their lives, and they were risking their families' lives just by working with us. Now we had an incident in Afghanistan. I was based in the Green Zone, and the Green Zone was Taliban run. So every day, every night, we would have small arms fire, RPGs, rocket powered grenades thrown at us. We used to get the lot. But and in that same compound, we had a small unit of Afghan soldiers, and we had a small number of Afghan police. And one of the Afghan police, uh, someone had basically said to a Taliban member that this man, this policeman, was now working with the British, and they didn't like that. So what the Taliban did, they got hold of this policeman. They got him in front. They got the whole village out to come and watch, and they beat him, they stripped him, and then they tied his hands to the bumper of one vehicle, and then they tied his feet to the back bumper of another vehicle, and and then the both vehicles pulled away, which, as you can imagine, then the body came apart in two halves. And then that wasn't it all. That wasn't all. What they also did then was they got the body and they threw it in an irrigation ditch. And the irrigation ditches in Afghanistan are basically just sewage. That's all it is. It's just feces, urine, human and animal. It's just disgusting. But they wanted to make a point saying, if you're going to work for the British or work alongside the British, then be aware that we're watching, and if we catch you, then we'll kill you, basically. I'm also looking forward to the Armed Forces Covenant coming into play. Um, I think that's that's beneficial to veterans, because I think at the moment, again, the last government, Conservative, the current government, Labour, it feels like as a veteran that our country has let us down and abandoned us. And it feels like they just don't care about us. And you know what? It takes a lot of someone for someone to sign the oath of allegiance and dedicate their life to being a British soldier, protecting and and fighting uh, domestically or abroad or overseas. The sad thing is as well is that there's too many British veterans that are homeless and living on the same streets that they sign the oath of allegiance to protect and serve. And I think it's sad. It's I became homeless back in August, and the whole process was abysmal. It was absolutely abysmal, and it just feels like some of us came back from Afghanistan in coffins, and some of us came back from Afghanistan with a mental illness. And I'm diagnosed with complex PTSD and emotional unstable personality disorder, and all that was diagnosed uh, 6 months after I returned back from Afghanistan, and then I was medically discharged in September 2013 because of my mental illness. The government has done nothing for us, and yet surely we should be a priority when it comes to housing. Um, and surely we should have the support of our own government. When you don't have the support of your own government, then we're living in sad times, and that's exactly what's happening at the minute. And we are living in sad times. The people of this country, they respect and they love veterans, and they appreciate what we have done for this country. Now, shouldn't the government be at the top of that list supporting us? They should, but they're not. They're not, and it's sad. It makes me really sad. This was a mixed race kid from Wolverhampton, grew up with nothing, didn't have no support when he wanted to join the army, but he went off and did it anyway, and that's exactly what I did. And I remember the woman that brought me up. She said to me, um, I said, I'm leaving now, and I'm going off to do basic training. And she said to me, "Yeah, well, I'll see you in about 2 weeks." She had no faith and there's no support, no love there, and I proved her wrong because 2 weeks turned into 15 years. Um, and I didn't want to leave the army. If I hadn't been medically discharged, I'd still be in there now because I found myself. I found a purpose, and that. I mean, now for the last couple of years, I do artwork, and it's all based around the word love. And my artist name is Love Artglobal, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, and all that. But basically, I just go around and I've got a stencil that says the word love, and I just spray it, and I spray it on the streets, I spray it on walls and stuff. And I've got two good friends, John and Brian, and what they've done and what they continue to do is they will set up like um, a GoFundMe page to get me out to all these different countries. And I've been out to Poland, Berlin, Spain a couple of times, Dublin. Um, you know, to just to go out and spread this love. And you know what? As well, I've got to say, I've got a really good friend who's a vicar. Well, he's not a vicar. He's just transferred to. He's a padre now. He's just transferred to the RAF, and that got to keep that in. And and he said to me, many years ago, he said to me, you can come back from Afghanistan and you could have gone down an avenue full of hate. You could have hated every person of color. You could have really took it to heart, but I didn't. And the fact that we lost a really good friend and a good lad called Zach Cusack out in Afghanistan, and not just that, we lost several other boys and girls as well of our own. But I didn't come back from Afghanistan with hate in my heart because I've seen hate and anger from a very early age. My childhood was abusive and all the rest of it. And, unfortunately, part and parcel of joining the army is that you will come across when you need to deploy to different countries for fear of conflict or whatever. But um, you realise that you're meant to be here, and I was meant to be there, and I was meant to do that job, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Um, but now it's about spreading the love, and also as well, I mean, I didn't know my father, what I was told of him, um, and he was West Indian, and he came over to the UK during the Windrush era, and many came over, and then a year or so later, went back to the West Indies, and some stayed. And I think my father went back to the West Indies. But for me, it's really sad to see these flags because I just think it's detrimental to people that have migrated to this country. I think it's quite detrimental to legitimate asylum seekers as well. Uh, and like I said, these flags weren't up every time I came back from a tour of duty. So these people, and I have to say it, to me, they're just uneducated. If they was to just educate themselves a little bit more about the history of the UK and immigration, and asylum seekers and that. I think maybe they'd change their mind, but they're a little bit ignorant and refuse to do that. They just want to go off what they see here and now. And these flags. And if I ever saw someone putting a flag up, I would say the same thing. Where was you and your flags when I came back from Afghanistan? So the flags that are going up and are definitely not in my name, and I can definitely speak on behalf of my veteran friends and my regiment and all that. There's no one of us have got our names attached to those flags because we're not about that. And you know what? The British people aren't about that. Unfortunately, we've got a small minority of these people that are blatantly just racists. They're racists. These things, these flags have only been coming out the last 12 months, and it's for one purpose, and that is to cause a divide. And I don't think the government are doing enough to combat that because that's a problem. We've always had a problem with racism, not just our country, but other countries like the US and so forth. If we take the attitude of these same people that are putting these flags up, what do we become? We become worthless. The UK is a Christian country. The UK is a Christian country, and not nearby far, there's no mention in the Bible of hate. Hate. You're not born with hate. It's passed down to you. Racism is passed down to you. And these people that are passing this racist jibber jabber down to their own children and their children's children, all you're going to do is create a divide. And you know, we have these groups, these racist groups that want to do marches and stuff. And I live in Liverpool, and you know, they're just not welcome. They're not welcome in Liverpool and places like Blackpool, and because the British people, that's not what we're about. And through my artwork, through Love Art Global, I have a statement that I always use and bring it up, and that is, love is stronger than hate, and it really is. And when push comes to shove, the UK is more love than hate. To finalise what patriotism really does mean to me is this little girl here, and this is Dolly, and as you can see, she's a British bulldog, you know, and this is what this is the UK. This is sitting right here now, four legs and fur. This is the UK, and this is what we're about. We're not just a dog loving nation, we're also a loving nation. So please, life's too short to hate someone because of the colour of their skin. Life's too short to hate someone because they speak a different language than you. Life's too short for all of that. We're in 2025, and we're hating each other because people's skin colour, people's sexuality, people's gender. Like, surely there must be more things in this life worth worrying about than living next door to a black family or walking past, the same people that you're walking past. These aren't the same people that was trying to kill you in Iraq or the same people that were trying to kill you in Afghanistan. These are just normal people. You can't look at a Muslim and go, they're a wrong uns. Because you can't, because I have Muslim friends, and that sounds really corny, but I have Muslim friends, and 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 I'm respectful of that. I'm respectful of their religion, like they are respectful of mine. So please stop putting up these flags, man, because you're making yourself look like a bunch of idiots, a racist bunch of idiots, and we're not about that. You're diminishing what the UK was built on. The UK was built on immigration. Love sees no colour in this country, and that's what it's about. It's not about what is right and all this kind of rubbish. It's not, man. Just You just need to grow up and start teaching your kids better fundamentals of life. That's all. So yeah, just remember, love is stronger than hate. You know, right, Dom?